So first of all, thank you all so much for coming. And like I said, there's a few people still filtering in, so you'll notice them in the waiting room. They'll come in as we go along. I'll just be letting them in. My name is Joe Amditis. I am Assistant Director of Products and Events at the Center for Cooperative Media. And today we're going to be doing a workshop training session with two fantastic speakers on how to make sure that your website, your news site is, first of all, ADA compliant, but more importantly, more deeply, built with, intentional attention paid to accessibility and inclusivity around various ADA issues. So without further ado, I will go ahead and introduce our speakers and let them introduce themselves to you. We have Krystle Allen, who is the CEO or president of Eyes Like Mine Incorporated, and we have Marty Halo from Percy Media. Krystle is going to walk you through, after introduction, is going to walk you through an overview of the subject and from her personal experience and her professional experience, and then Marty will come in with a more technical demonstration, site audit, and show you some of the things, the extensions and programs that he mentioned in the prior materials. So with that, Krystle, do you want to start, introduce yourself, and then throw it over to Marty when you're done?
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Krystle Allen, as introduced earlier, and I am a native Newark, New Jersey resident. I'm excited to be here this afternoon. I am currently working from home, but I do operate a nonprofit organization, which is called Eyes Like Mine, Inc. I'm a person who has been legally blind for 21 years now. And I use a lot of assistive technology, especially because I am visually impaired and all of the hats that I have in community development. So that's pretty much me for right now, but I will share, more details about myself, about my use of assistive technology, and having access to information online. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Marty, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself there?
Yeah, sure. Hey, how's it going? My name is Marty Halo. I run a web development company, and we pretty much specialize in WordPress sites, but we also do a lot of ADA work for people. And the ADA compliance that I did that would be pertinent to this is I did the ADA for the center site and for a lot of the sites that are associated with the School of Communication and Media at Montclair State University. I kind of did some pre-work, and I gave you guys some links to some Google extensions that you can download, but I have a bunch of stuff that I can go through today to help you from a technical perspective, ADA your site, so that if there was any concerns from that aspect, that you would have a passing score.
Fantastic. So then I guess let's throw it back over to Krystle. Krystle, do you want to go ahead and start? Like I said, Krystle's going to give us an overview of the subject, why it's important, and why we need to think especially carefully about a lot of these issues. So Krystle, I'll throw it back over to you. You don't have your video on, which is totally fine, but it doesn't let me spotlight you. So you should, as soon as you start, it should bring you up to the front of the Zoom.
Okay. So just in light of the subject for today, accessibility is very important, especially for your customer base, for access to information and resources, for quality of life, for people who have print disabilities such as dyslexia, or someone who might be visually impaired or blind, or other sensory disabilities. But in particular, someone who's visually impaired or blind, or someone who has dyslexia. And especially now, because we are all living in a pandemic, and what did we all have to do at the beginning of the pandemic? Because of the uncertainty of it, with going to school, with being employed, with running businesses, a lot of our work has transitioned to remote alternatives and meeting spaces such as this Zoom here, or even just more frequent exploration online. And that connects the visitors to websites. And those websites can be websites for information, websites for any type of customer base, or just websites for anything related to news and media. And just from my own lived experience, me being legally blind, I did not know about all of the assistive technology that would be available to me as an individual, just because of my special need. And as I began to get more in depth with the blindness community and learning about what accessibility really means and how important it is. So, for instance, I use a screen reader to access my email, to access information, to take down information. And my screen reader is on both on a lot of my devices. So I have my iPhone. Everyone has an iPhone, but there are features that can be enabled on your iPhone to allow you to have access to something that you're not able to see, which is through the voiceover feature and the screen reader feature. There's 3 different speech components on an iPhone, and if someone is not able to see, or if they have restricted vision, or if they have dyslexia of any kind, they would enable that feature. And then you go into exploring websites. So if you go on certain websites that may have too many graphics, that might not be screen reader friendly, then that limits your exploration to accessing content, which could turn into a few different issues. One could be frustration. The other could be that the website is not ADA compliant. And in recent times, when websites are not ADA compliant, that is considered a discrimination, a breach of the ADA law, and it can turn into possible lawsuits where a consumer may be browsing a site and they're not able to access the content or information, and they'll report it to certain authorities, and then that company may be instructed to uh, put in certain plugins to allow for access on their website. Or if they don't comply, then that can turn into certain fines being distributed to that business owner or company. So it's really important that access for all is available, but especially if you're doing a lot of virtual business or just placing virtual content on a platform, that it is accessible to those who may have certain restrictions visually or just in cognitive. So what a screen reader outside of the iPhone, another screen reader is called JAWS. And that is an acronym that stands for Jobs Application with Speech. And many people who are blind and visually impaired use this particular software. It's the most popular, and they'll use it just to install on any standard laptop or desktop. And from then on, they receive certain training to learn the different keystrokes to navigate websites, to navigate email, to navigate any kind of printed material. And earlier on in the beginning stages of using JAWS, there are many websites that just were inaccessible to the software, and mainly because there were too many graphics that were placed on the sites. So sometimes if there's a huge logo or a huge image that might be dominating most of the website, and there may be very little print on it, sometimes the screen reader could access the limited print, or sometimes it won't speak at all because the graphics that are placed on the site are so dominant that it won't allow for the screen reader to have full exploration on the site, which then prevents an individual to connect with any services or any products or anything that we all would do routinely exploring a website. So then that also could mean that you lose a customer, or you lose the opportunity to connect with the individual because of the inaccessibility on the website. There's been times when I've explored websites like Old Navy, for instance, and they're a retail company. So when you want to shop online, you want to pick out whatever items that might be of your interest or in your budget. And Old Navy site years ago was not really accessible to a screen reader. It would sound like some type of foreign jargon to listen to my computer and to be able to try to connect with any of the retail items of purchase. So then it would also like hinder my independence. So anyone who uses a screen reader, who comes across an inaccessible site, that also takes away their opportunity to choose and to select and be independent on the internet, because they can't access the content because it's not accessible or screen reader friendly. So it's just important that these things are in consideration. A trend right now, which Facebook started maybe about 6 years ago, was utilizing AI, artificial intelligence. And artificial intelligence might not seem like such a huge deal to some of you when it comes to accessibility, but it is. So now when people explore Facebook, they may have a vision impairment of any kind and they're using a screen reader software. They have the opportunity to hear a brief description of images. So like if there's a wedding and maybe your aunt or your uncle is just getting married and they post a picture of their wedding, of course someone who's visually impaired cannot see everything that's in that picture, but through AI, artificial intelligence, it'll say wedding, group, family, bride, groom, and that gives a little more opportunity for access. And then when it comes to news and media, sometimes websites such as Essence, I subscribe to Essence magazine and I get their emails very often. But when I want to go into access the content that they share, I have to tap into several links or select several links. And it takes a long time for me to toggle to get to the main content of any articles that were written by the different media journalists. And they focus mainly on putting a lot of images and a lot of video. And even when putting in plugins with video, sometimes a screen reader can definitely read a video. It will allow for you to access it and play it. But sometimes because the screen reader has to do so much work to toggle around images and move over headers and different links, sometimes it might not allow for you to press play on the video. And that's also something that prevents an individual using a screen reader or a person who may have a print disability from access. Access is so important right now, especially because we're all heavily into the virtual spaces. And having websites, having any type of printed material, whether it's your newsletter publication, making sure that that is fully accessible to individuals who require it is really important. Because if you want to make sure that you're being inclusive and that you're ADA compliant, then it's important to take whatever necessary measures to provide that access, because information is open to all. So if we have our internet spaces or our newsletters and we want to increase our audience, and part of our audience that might be a part of the disability community can't access it, then what does that really say about how inclusive you really want to be? Because people with disabilities and people who use specialized technology are shopping, they're working, they make good livings, and they want to just be included. So when I mentioned Essence magazine, that was just something that was, leisure. So just imagine, like, for instance, how many students had to transition into virtual education. And students started utilizing different virtual classroom platforms like Google Classroom, Blackboard, and even Moodle for college students. And Moodle, I can tell you for certain, is not an accessible space for screen readers or individuals who require assistive technology. Because it only allows you to access content and information to a certain point. And most colleges and universities are using Moodle. And if there is a student who's visually impaired or blind and they use a screen reader, if they are taking a quiz or if they are putting in any answers on the Moodle platform, they will kind of have to resort to having someone who can see assist them, because Moodle, their website is not a fully accessible site. So just in consideration of all of these different spaces, I mentioned Essence Magazine, I mentioned the Moodle website for classrooms, and just having a lot of graphics or images on sites. It's okay to have them, but there are certain plugins that you'll probably hear about from Marty that you can consider installing onto your website that might not be of any additional cost to you. It's just an alternative. And even some plugins and different accessibility accommodations allow for there to be a different display, so that if you have a regular site that you want your audience to see first, then it can still maintain that layout, but there'll be alternative options that people like myself, who are all around the world using internet spaces, to use a specialized button to change the layout just for accessibility purposes. It won't change your website to other customers, but it will accommodate for a screen reader, where the color contrast can be changed for someone who may be using their vision, or someone who is dyslexic, or to eliminate certain buttons that prevent an individual to tap and select links, or to just move from page to page, however many pages are included in a website. So there's a lot of variety that comes, that is involved with access, because people are using information on the internet and exploring the internet for various purposes. Some could be for leisure, some could be for business, some could be for just informational access, and some could be for education. And there are so many websites that still to this day that are not fully ADA compliant. And in news and media, there are many websites that are not fully ADA compliant. And just in New Jersey alone, there's an estimated 259,000 residents who have various levels of vision loss, from mild to total blindness and everywhere in between. But they still want to have access to information and content. And it's important that people who make those decisions for websites or putting up information and content consider the accessibility options for users like myself and others who are using assistive technology, because technology has evolved greatly. Things like what we use every day when we text. Texting originally was created for someone who was hearing impaired or deaf, but everybody uses it now. The GPS that we use in cars that people can't live without, that was originally created for someone who was blind or visually impaired. So when you think about access overall in media, in news, online, it's important that these spaces consider us as well, because we're using all of these spaces. And when there's lack of access, other words that we don't want to really hear or might not favor, like discrimination, or non-inclusiveness is something that can start up other conversations. So that's pretty much what I wanted to share based on some of my lived experience. And even, now, me working remotely, me running my organization, we do a lot of in-service trainings for companies and agencies or organizations to just educate on what technology is available, to make sure that any practices you have are inclusive of all individuals. Because even if it might not directly affect you, just think about this presentation here right now. We're all here logged on Zoom. And if all of you closed your eyes right now, one, you would not be able to see the caption services that are happening right now. You would not be able to see each other. So you solely only have the option to be fully audible and any devices that you're logged in on. So just think about how you would use or log on to Zoom or access the Center for Cooperative Media's information if you were fully visually impaired or legally blind or partially sighted and you didn't have full access to this session. How would you navigate around it? How would you be able to have a positive takeaway? Because immediately sometimes some people will take things so personal if they don't have access to information that they'll just immediately just disconnect. And that's, where you lose people. So just in conclusion, access to information in the disability community is so important. And I'm so happy this discussion is happening today because if you're not aware, this whole month of October is Blindness Awareness Month. And this is a great platform to contribute to the access for people who are blind and visually impaired.
Thank you so much, Krystle. I appreciate it. And I appreciate you being here and helping us with this conversation. And I hope you stay on, if you have time to stay to supplement anything in the future or answer questions towards the end of the session. And at this point, we're going to turn over to Marty. Marty Halo, some of you I see asking in the chat when we can find resources to make our site accessible as possible. And that is exactly why we have Marty here with us, because he's going to run us through some of the technical aspects and basics of how to do exactly that. So I'll throw it over to Marty now. I'll ask you to unmute, and I will go ahead and spotlight you there, Marty.
Yeah,
You
sure.
take it away.
Yeah, can everybody hear me okay?
Yep, sounds good.
All right, sounds great. So we're going to go over some basic things of how to successfully get a site to become ADA compliant. Some of these things are achieved with plugins, but some of them are not. They're a little bit more technical. What I'll do is over the course of this training, I'll start with the technical stuff first, and then at the end, I'll show you what plugin you could use to just download if you want to just do like a simple version of it. I'm going to show you some sites. I'm going to show you some things. If anybody has any questions, don't be afraid to throw it in the chat or just unmute yourself and ask a question. If I don't hear you or see you, I feel very lonely out here. So I hope everybody out there is doing well. Okay, all right, I'm just going to share my screen here real fast, and we're just going to talk about some of the things that we would need to do in order to ADA a site. One of the most important things that we can do to make sure that our sites are ADA compliant is to allow users to move throughout our pages using the tab button in order for them to get into different sections of the site. And we basically do this through heading tags. And if I was to show you a book that was 900 pages in length, and I was to ask you to very quickly to find a certain subject matter within that book, does anybody have any idea of what resource the book provides that would allow me to go to a single page or two and see what all of the chapters of the book is? Anybody? Just shout it out. I know you're out there.
Table of contents.
Anyway, table of contents, yes. So every book has a table of contents to it. If we were to think about the way that we structure our heading tags on our page, the exact same way that we would structure a table of contents if we were writing a book would be a nice starting basis for us to understand of how we need to make our pages in order for them to be ADA compliant, okay? let's take a look at the Center for Cooperative Media's homepage here. There are some main sections here that we can see. Obviously, the title of the center might be a main section. Obviously, we have a few boxes that are below here that have titles to them that could be main sections. If I was to audit this page for header tags, let me just show you what that would look like. And this would go into one of the pre-plugins, but let me just show it to you first.
This is how you know we keep them honest around here, folks. This is going to be a direct call out of me here as I'm in charge of the site. So dig in.
Yeah. So again, every element on this page is wrapped in a header tag. And those header tags are defined here by the number that's in front of each of these letters. And when I say a header tag, I mean like when you're in WordPress and you choose like what the size of the text would be, and it says like heading 1, heading 2, heading 3. Or if you're into HTML, it would be the H1 wrapper, H2 wrapper, H3 wrapper. And obviously I would be able to show you what that looks like in a second. Let me see if I can just do it right here on my page for you so you guys can see it. So Center for Cooperative Media is up here in the main heading of the page. And that is wrapped in a 1. Everybody see that over here on the left-hand side, a 1, Center for Cooperative Media. If you were in WordPress and you were to style that, that would look like heading 1. If I was in HTML, it would look like this. And it would be the same for H2s. Instead of H1, this would be an H2. And it would be the same for H3s. This would be an H3 instead of an H2. The whole idea behind this is that the page is broken up into informational sections, with each section having a heading to it, and each subsection of that heading having a subheading to it. The major heading of this page is the name of the page itself, Center for Cooperative Media. But as you start to scroll down the page, you'll see that there's some H2s here that correspond to H2s that are down here on the page. So we have NJ News Commons, NJ News Commons, collaborative journalism, collaborative journalism, research programs, research programs. This allows users with the tab button to move through different sections or chapters of the page, which your header tags are clearly defined on this page. Let me just show you another example of that, just so we're on the same page here. This is a web page for peak performances at Montclair State University. We have a few sections that are part of this page. We have a title of the page, obviously, and then we have these call out sections which have information in them. We have an engage section. We have a gallery section. We have an amplify section, a program section, and a credit section. If I was to look at the header tags on this page, we can see that the title of the page is the first one. I have an H2 that's in the title, but the next one is engage, gallery, amplify, program, credits, and then some additional information down here at the bottom. But from a very general perspective, you can see that the majority of the headings on informational pages on your website follow a table of content structure. And that table of content structure is defined by header tags. If I was to show you what this looked like in HTML format, I would show it to you like this. So we would have a section here, which is my engage section. As you can see, that is wrapped in an H2. As you can see, that corresponds to the 2 right there. And we have an engage section, and we have a gallery section. Again, H2s. Over here, over at the center, we have a lot of other things here that are not H2s, but they're also H3s, which would be subsections of a subsection. So right down here, we have a posts section, which is some previous news items. And we can see here that the title of the section would be previous posts. That would be our H2. But then below it, each one of these titles of an individual post, we wrapped in an H3. And this allows for users to move throughout the page and just kind of be able to hit on all of the headers that are on the page and move throughout the page and decide which section or which chapter within the table of contents they would like to get information on the page from. In terms of header tags, does anybody have any questions about this specific portion of header tags and them being on your pages?
Feel free to just unmute and ask your question or drop it in the chat and I'll read it to Marty.
Yeah, just jump in there. Don't be afraid.
Hi, this is Renata in Colorado. As a journalist, I'm not really much up on HTML, so I appreciate you going slowly. Thank you. But now I am concerned about the drag and drop CMS that I was going to use, which is probably going to be Ghost, as to whether they do all these things that you've just started talking to us about. How would I find that out? So
when you are in that CMS, let me just pull up one of the Center for Cooperative Media pages here, because this is something that I had trouble with when I was having to ADA the centers page. We use a drag and drop here. It's Visual Bakery, but I'm sure that it's kind of in the same realm here. What would pretty much need to be done is two things. The first thing, you would need to see if your visual builder allows you to attach these header tags as part of the builder. So for the Center of Cooperative Media, this isn't a text block. This is a builder block that generates these header tags. And as part of that, there is no option for me to decide what header tag that is. Is that going to be an H2? Is it going to be an H3? There's no ability for me to tell. Now, thankfully for the centers, everything I put in this header module comes up as a H2, which is good. If for some reason it doesn't, what I do is I create a regular text block and I use HTML to achieve that H3 result. And I try to use a little bit of CSS to style it to make it look like the block as it was supposed to be being used as the visual builder. I know that gets into a more complicated level of this, but I found that when we did this with Montclair State University, that a simple plugin didn't get the sites to pass at the level that they needed them to get passed for the university requirements. And there was additional development thinking that I had to think about in order to get these sites to look the way that we wanted them to get them to look, but to also pass ADA compliance. What I could do is I could look at that element builder for you and see what it offers and see if there's a way to do it. But really, it becomes more difficult to achieve ADA out of box when you're using element builders, because the element builders don't think into account best practices for ADA. Okay. I hope that answers your question and doesn't completely freak you out.
It does, and that's what I was concerned about. So is there like a source or repository for like this HTML code that you were just showing that I can just go and copy and paste?
Yeah. I mean, I could, after this is over, I could just come up with a few HTML tags that I can just have Joe send back to everybody. That would allow you to just kind of look at this and take them and insert them into your sites.
Okay, thank you so much.
Happy to pass those along in the follow-up email, as well as any other resources we discussed during the session.
Cool, amazing. Okay. All right. Anybody else have any questions about the heading portion of the conceptual heading portion of how we want to lay out the information on our pages in order to be ADA compliant? No? Okay, great. We'll move on to the next one then. Okay, next. Okay, next, capitalizations. This is something that I had no idea that was even a thing. In your heads, who has text on their site that is all capitals, whether it's being headers or titles, that it's in all caps? Think about that for a second. I'm sure 90% of the people on this site, on this webinar, have all capitals as part of somewhere on their site. When the screen reader reads HTML text, any text that it sees as capitals, it thinks is an abbreviation for something. So if I said that, if I had a title, for example, that was like us and them, and it was all capitals, the screen reader would read that as US. It would read us as United States. It would read it as an abbreviation as opposed to a full word. I don't think that it would take and make it AND. I just think it would take anything that it would think would be an abbreviation and read it as if it was an abbreviation. So as you can tell on the Center for Cooperative Media site, there is no text in HTML format that has full capitalization to it. This is one of the bigger factors that goes into the ADA score. And I haven't found a workaround for this yet. So for most people's themes and their websites, this is a simple fix with CSS, meaning like if you type in a title to your story and it's regular capitalization, and the theme itself is regenerating that title on the front end as full capitals, there is just some CSS work that can be done relatively quickly to correct that. Does anybody have any questions about capitalizations and if they're worried about capitalizations causing a problem on their own sites?
Real quick, I think I noticed this on NJ Spotlight in particular, when I copy and paste a headline that it displays in all caps, but then when I copy and paste it, it actually is in title or sentence case. Is it more about whether it's displayed as all caps or whether the core HTML, the way it's written originally, is in all caps and then it's transformed for display?
I think it's how it's seen as opposed to the HTML structure of it.
Okay,
I would just try as much as possible to make it be as seen as capitalization. Now, if I had this piece of text right here, let's go down to, let's see, the latest. This is what I'm working with right here. We can see that the latest is obviously wrapped in a H2, but the text itself is the latest, meaning there's a capital T and a capital L. Some themes, create a little bit of CSS that would make the text appear different on the viewable section, regardless of what you type it in as. If you type, if all of your titles are regular text, just like this, the latest, and the theme is changing it, then it's an easy fix. But if I go in here and change this to all capitals, and I try to make this lowercase, it will work with CSS, but I'm not sure if the capitalization will work. Let's see. It will not. So if you have a title of your article that is in all capitals, and I try to do a CSS trick to make the T and the L the only capitalizations in the sentence, it will not work. So as simple best practice, just try to keep the majority of your titles, your header tags, in best practice capitalization. Does anybody have any questions on that? No? Okay, great. Okay. Alt tags on images. Who knows what an alt tag is? Anybody out there in no camera land? Does anybody know what an alt tag is? Joe does. Okay. All right.
It lets screen readers interpret what's in the image.
Yes, correct. So the internet, even though it's getting better and better, this image right here, it's unable to discern what the image is itself. It just sees it as like a flat blank section on the website. It knows it's an image, but it doesn't have the AI to really see what that image is. And the alt text is what we use to tell the screen readers what the image is. And adding alt text to your images is relatively easy. Most people would notice this in the media library section of our websites. When we upload things to the media library, there is a section here that says alternative text. Every single one of these has to be filled out in order to keep your ADA score at a level that's high enough in order to pass. When we are describing these images, there was 2 rules. Okay, I will refresh that. Let's see. Okay. Well, I will
Damn,
find one
I
that
thought I
has
had those.
all-
They must have been removed.
Yeah. Okay. I'll add. So before ADA was a thing, web developers used to use the alt text to do SEO for images. So if you're ever on Google and you search for something and you click the image thing and a bunch of images show up, the way that it populates there is based off the alt text that people attach to their images. In an ADA world, the alt text of the image would not be a searchable keyword. It would be a physical description of the image. So, for example, this image that we're looking at directly on our screen right here, the alt text for this would be individuals about to enter a building for voting. Let's look at another image. Let's play a game. Anybody out there in webinar land, can anybody describe what this image is? You can just shout it out. Anybody?
Line of people gathered at some sort of market.
Great, outstanding. Yes, very good. Same for this. When we think about our alt tags and we're tagging images, we need to make sure that the images have a description which describes the image. Now, the bot that gives you the ADA score doesn't look to see how good your descriptions are. It just looks to see that they're there. Does anybody have any questions about the alt tagging of images in WordPress?
I have a question.
Sure.
If there's an image that is just like decoration, but doesn't have something to do with the article, is it useful to put alt text, or does that make it harder for people to navigate the page?
So that is a very good question. That I do not know. I would suggest that if it was a decorative image, that I would not put an alt description on there. From a web developer's perspective, I'm always kind of worried that one of my clients will audit me. And so I just make sure that every image that I put on a site has an alt tag with it. I think that would be almost a trial and error type of thing. When we had consultation from the university of how to make our pages ADA compliant, I had questions just like this. And what they told me was to literally download a screen reader and to view your page as if you were viewing it in accessibility mode. And as you hover over an image, you would see how the screen reader reads that page. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that's helpful.
Okay, all right, great. Anybody have any other questions on? So I mean, again, from an HTML perspective, if we're not in a builder and we are doing things in HTML, I just want everybody to take a look at this little snippet of HTML right here. IMG, that's obviously an image. Here is the source to my image, but then at the end, I have an alt equals and a name. So if you were not using regular WordPress or you were using HTML and you need to alt tag your images, the source code to alt tag an images, we would just be adding ALT equals NJArts or whatever the description would be. On 90% of themes, meaning like out of the box themes, best practice themes, when you attach an alt tag to an image, it will appear. Let's refresh this page for Joe. It will appear as part of,
Come on, no whammies. Come on.
no, it's not there. Sorry.
Oh
buddy.
my gosh, there must be a
It's not
caching
there.
issue or something. They're all showing up on my end.
Yeah. It will appear in most WordPress block builders. If you add an image, what's ever here in the alt tag will also be attached to the image as it appears on the front end and stuff. Okay, all right, let's see what's next here. Next on the list. Titles on iframes. Oh, this is good. Okay. Has anybody ever embedded a YouTube video as part of their stories? Yeah, I would assume that 90% of you have. The iframe embeds work the exact same way as pictures. When the screen reader hovers over an iframe, it just sees it as a dark mass on the page. It does not know what it is. We have to apply an alt tag to an iframe, and an iframe could be a YouTube embed, a video embed, it could be a SoundCloud embed, it could be an info map, whatever it is. Let's take a look at if I wanted to share and embed this. Okay. Right here within the embed code, does everybody see how it says title YouTube video player? YouTube adds a title so that the pages will pass ADA compliance if it's audited. But just like the alt tags, is the title or is the description of this particular video YouTube video player? Or should we make that the actual description of what the iframe embed is? Obviously, the answer is the second half, is that like when you go in and you embed these into your pages, you should make sure that the title gets changed by you going in there and typing it in to be a description of what the video is. Same idea as the alt tags for the images. Anybody have any questions on that? No? Okay, great. All right, let's keep moving along here. Okay, menu attribute labels. Okay. This is what the Center of Cooperative Media menu structure looks like. At the end of this presentation, I'm going to show you an extension that's going to give you suggestions of how to make your site ADA compliant. One of those suggestions that keeps coming up at a very high level is this thing that's called menu attribute or title attribute for your navigation. I've never experienced this with the screen reader, but let me just show you how to fix that and for you to get it to pass. It's really rather simple. In your WordPress menu, if you expand any of your menu items, now we'll just click on this just to make sure. Project. You should see by default a box that says title attribute as part of every menu item that's in your WordPress menu. By default, these all are blank. It's highly recommended to get a passing score if you just go into your WordPress menu, open up your drop downs, and provide a title for the title attribute block in the navigation. Mine is a little bit different here. So for peak performances, my menu item is box office and tickets, but I made my title attribute tickets for performances. Current season, I made mine current season. Let's see what some of the other ones are. That one does not have one. I have to create one for that. It's College of the Arts. Currently streaming live broadcasts. Again, like how you title these will just be how the user receives them. The audit report that will give you your ADA score is not judging you on how you title. They are just judging you on if these titles are present or not. Does anybody have any questions on title attributes? Great, outstanding. Okay.
Oh, we got one question. Is WordPress
sure.
the preferred site builder for meeting ADA compliance?
Oh, no. They're all different. So if you're not using a site builder and you're just using regular Gutenberg, imagine buying a house in a brand new condominium where all the houses are the same and everything is great. If you're using a page builder for your site, imagine buying a very old house where none of the door frames are exactly the same size. And it's more of like a development process in order to get your sites to pass with ADA compliance. It's not a big deal. It's just, you have to kind of massage and give it a little bit more maintenance, as opposed to things that are just kind of right out of the box. I'm trying to think in my head what the percentages would be within this webinar of people that use just Gutenberg editor for their sites or have like a custom page, but I would say it's probably 50-50. I think that once you get to a point where you're looking for a little bit more customization to create your pages, you immediately move to a third-party builder. Again, not a big deal, but there is some development that would come into getting your sites to be ADA compliant. All right, let's see what the next thing on our list here is. Oh, images with text on them. This is a big one. ADA really doesn't like this a lot, meaning, okay, let's just take a look at this here, for example. The picture on the left-hand side, it says NJ News Commons. A lot of people like to make their sites a little bit more creative by using Photoshop and taking the titles of their sections and embedding them onto the images themselves. Meaning that instead of you looking at an image of a map in New Jersey and below it says NJ News Commons, that I would use Photoshop and write NJ News Commons on top of the image. There is an example here on the page where that happens, and it's this Learn More button right here. This is a button that's an image and it has text on it. The screen reader can't read the text that's on the image. The audit, now again, obviously you could use alt text to fix that from a user's perspective, meaning like if somebody hovers over, click to learn more, the alt text says, this is a button that will take you to more information about yada, yada, yada. The audit report doesn't know that though. It looks at an image and it's smart enough to see that there's text on it, and it lets you know that there's text on images. I don't know how it's not smart enough to know how to describe the image, but it knows that there is an image there with text on it that needs to be corrected, okay? So we just need to make sure that throughout our sites that the images that we are using don't have any pertinent text on them. And I don't think that any of them do here on the center site. Percy, I think that's why Joe chose these images to begin with, because again, they are visual images, but they don't have text on them. If you want your site to be ADA compliant and you are a journalism person that when you create a story, you make an image and put it in the Photoshop and then you put text over that image to be the title of the story, I would stop doing that because I don't know a workaround for that. Again, in theory, the alt text will correct that for the user, but in an audit, if you get an audit, it will fail because of text being on images. Does anybody have any questions about that?
I have a quick question. So we utilize text over images as well as headings when we're identifying things like specific shows or podcasts or whatever. Mm-hmm. So if we have that redundancy, do you think that that eliminates that concern, or is it just like no text on images if you can avoid it at all?
I mean, I would try to avoid it. I mean, if I let me see if I can find a page here really quick. Okay, so this would be a failed image, meaning like that, you know, that this is text that's embedded onto an image. Again, I could make the alt text. I think it would be fine because from a screen reader perspective, if the alt text is correct, the user will be having a fine time. The center site, here's an example of how the background of this is a background image. But if I hover over this text, it's like, this is HTML text that is sitting on top of that image, so that when the page reads it, it reads it as regular HTML image. For the university's requirements for ADA, we don't have to be 100%, but we have to be at a level that's higher than X amount of percent of other sites that are on the internet. If you wanted to initially ADA your site, get it to where it needs to be, and then just continue like working as if nothing's going on, I would just recommend to not put images on your text, because what would happen is that as that continues to go on, you're accumulating these images and it's going to dampen the ADA score if somebody audits it. Do you have a follow-up? I hope that answers your question.
Yep, that was helpful. Thank you.
Okay. Cool. Anybody else have any other questions on that? I mean, again, like now we're starting to get into the point of like where like your web developer person is developing your sites with these things in mind. And they might have to do some creative things in order to have your site be like that. Let's see if I go to real abilities here real fast. If there's anything yeah, there's no hover text on this at all, but okay.
Hey, Martin.
Yes.
There are times that we'll use graphics that have text on, like for an event that has that event information on it. And in the alt text, we'll say what it's a graphic of, describing it, and then we'll include that the information is included in the article. Is that something that you would suggest saying was okay?
Yeah, I would. So I would suggest that that's fine. I mean, there are just some things that are out of your control. It's just, I would just try to keep your ratios low, meaning like, meaning if you have 2 images that are on your entire site and one of them doesn't have text on them and one of them does, it means that 50% of your images have text on images, right? But if you have 1,000 images and you have, you know, one of them that has it's like the percentage of the entire images that are part of your site are like way lower. So I would just try to suggest to avoid it if you can, but if you can't, feel free to use it. Just try not to overuse it in a way that your ratio becomes, you know, more, you know what I'm saying? Like that they kind of blow out your ratio where it's like now you're having more images with text, because I think that that's what the audit does. It like looks to see how many are there in comparison to everything else.
All right, thanks.
Cool. All right, let's see what's next on our, how's everybody doing so far?
I was just saying, I just want to do a quick time check. We are coming up to the top of the hour at 2 p.m. We have this room until 2:30. We have it for a 90-minute session. Just to let everybody know, we are hitting that 30 minutes to go mark.
Cool, amazing. All right, next, let's talk about something else that ADA compliance really does not like. And this is part of the center site, so we can watch Joe's face as this happens. Okay,
Fantastic.
Here we go. I can assume why it doesn't like this, but I'll just tell you what it does not like. When you have click-through buttons on your page, it wants every button to have a unique click-through text to it. Meaning like New Jersey News Comment, learn more. Collaborative journalism, learn more. Research program, learn more. Researchers, learn more. For some reason, when I was doing the ADA for other university stuff, this was one of the things that was coming up as a suggestion. Meaning, in order to better ADA your site, it's imperative that every click-through button has its own unique text on top of it. Meaning like learn more about the NJ News Commons, learn more about collaborative journalism. That's a very simple way of going about it. A more creative would be, you know, NJ News Commons resources, collaborate with the center, program materials for research. You know what I'm saying? So it's like every button that we're using has a unique title to it.
And this doesn't also, you can't fix this with alt text as well?
No.
Damn. All right.
Yeah, no. I was, and again, this is like the technicality of it. And I say technicality as I roll my eyes because it's like your site is auditing at 78% ADA compliance, and you're trying to figure out what you can do to get it over 80%. And it's like, these are the things that start coming up that you're like, oh, well, if I do this, it'll make the site more ADA compliant. I think for most news sites, you don't really have to worry about this. I think this is for like landing pages when you guys are creating landing pages and stuff. When you have sections that lead to other sections, try to make your buttons just have different text to it or unique text. And any questions on that? Did that freak anybody out? Any questions on any questions on that? No? Okay, great. All right, let's see what else we got here. Okay, let's do this next because this leads into it. Okay. When a user is surfing these sites and I click on learn more here, it's going to take me to a page. If I want to go back to the page that I was just at, I can go here and hit the back button. Seamless in one window, in one tab. If this page opens in a new tab, I can't go back because there is no back because it's a new tab. As one of the big marking factors and what some of these ADA plugins will do is it will strip all target underscore blanks from your entire site, meaning that for your site to be ADA compliant, it really, really, really wants no pages to open in new tabs. Again, for the simple reason of if this opens in a new tab, I can't get back. You know what I'm saying? I can't use a short code to go back. Does anybody have any questions on that, or does that freak anybody out?
That's depressing for me. That's very sad because I like the new tabs having open. But Olivia, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, so that's for if a page auto opens in a new tab, but obviously if you select that on purpose, that's still an option.
Correct. Yeah,
Got it.
absolutely. You would have the option to select it manually, just like I right-clicked on this.
Yeah.
And went open a new tab. But when you're creating links within your site, and like, I know I'm probably raising people's blood pressure on this one because as journalists, you have outbound links all over the place in stories. You know what I'm saying? You're reading a story. It's not an internal link. It's an outbound link. Hey, look for more information, and it's an outbound link. It pretty much happens all the time. It's super, super common. But from a user's perspective, this was the one thing that really made ADA click in my head, was that if things open in a new tab, I can't just quickly hit the back button and go back to the page or whatever. So if we could prevent that from happening where we can, that would be great. Some of these plugins, these accessibility plugins, will just strip it out of your site completely, meaning like it will use a JavaScript call to say, if I see this, don't do it. I don't know if that would be problematic for people, but I mean, again, this would be something that, I mean, in a few minutes, I'm just going to show you like the audit tool so you can audit yourself. It doesn't give you a score. You have to sign up for it in order for it to give you a score, but it gives you suggestions of the things that you need to do in order to fix your site. I would look at this in terms of what's my score? What does it need to be? And then what are the remaining things that I could do to bump the score up to where it needs to be? And then like that becomes a decision, like an editorial decision of what's going on your site and how you want it to behave, and which things you're willing to live with and which things that you might not particularly be happy with the way that it functions, but it would make your site completely ADA compliant. It's like that would be a choice that you would then be able to make. Does anybody have any questions on that?
Just excited to see the tool.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. I'm excited to see the tool. Okay. Okay. All right. Yeah. Let's do the tool. Okay. All right. So here is what the tool is. The tool up here, it's called the Site Improve Accessibility Checker. You can have this tool as a Google extension. Let's see. Oh, do I have to sign up for this? Oh no, here we go. Okay. Okay. Let's see what this comes up with. So again, this is the main tool that was recommended to developers in order to start to fix these problems. It shows you what the things are that you could fix on your site. It categorizes them by how important they are, meaning like, I think that the single A's are the things that will have the most effect on your score, so that you could think on as most. Okay, link purposes and content links. Let's see what this is. Provide a text alternative for link code example. Let's see what this is. Alt web accessibility. Okay. Go back. Let's go back. Let's find something that's very easy to diagnose here. Okay. This is called non-text content. What it's saying is all non-decorative images must have a text alternative, also known as alt text. So when you click on that, the title doesn't say, hey, you need to fix your alt texts, which is why I tried to take you through all the technical stuff first, so that when we're looking at the tool, it's like we can attach what we just learned to what it's asking for. Non-text, it says all non-decorative images must have an alt text, and then it shows you which images on the page don't have that alt text. And if you click on it, it'll literally take you to the image, which we know because we didn't have alt text on this image, that it will take you to the places where you need to go and fix this stuff. This tool is incredibly helpful. Let's see. Visual presentation, resize text. I mean, most of these things are, I mean, the center's site is pretty close to being ADA compliant. So there's really not going to be a lot of things on here. Let me see if I could just
Anybody
do this
want to
on.
offer up? Anybody want to offer up their site for as a guinea pig to, or is that, do you know what? I got one. I can send you if you want.
Yeah. Why don't you send me one? Let me see if I can get back into the Oh, there we go. In the chat here. Oh, Joe, is it okay?
Bloomfieldinfo.org.
Okay, got you. Okay. Okay, let's see what it comes back as. Okay. Oh, this is pretty good. Link should always have an alternate text. The link that can be inserted into each one does not need to be visible to pass the check. These are just some suggestions, but there's not really like a lot of hard suggestions here. Let's see what this is. Nope, that's easy stuff. Visual presentation. Nope. Let's do one that I know is not really ADA compliant. Hold on a second.
Got somebody in the chat says borderlessmag.org is one.
Oh, let's
Borderless mag.
Yeah, can you just put that in the chat real fast?
Yep, it's right there in the chat. You want me to, as a hyperlink?
Oh yeah, there. No, I got it. All right, let's try this one. Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. Great. Okay. All right. So let's see what some of these are. Name role. This is, headings are not structured. H5. One or more headings levels have been skipped. Here's how their heading structure. They have H1 is borderless mag, and then the first heading under it is an H4. And then they have H2, and then down here, it's an H2 with an H5 directly underneath it. A lot of people end up tagging things in header tags because of how it sizes the text. An H5 would be a little bit smaller text than an H3, but when the site comes into audit for ADA compliance, it wants to see this as a table of contents. Let's see what else we got here. All perceivable text should be included in an area landmark. That's the more advanced section of this.
I'm noticing here when you click on these issues, it's giving you sample code that could fix that as well, that you can just copy and paste and edit to your liking. That's amazing.
Yeah, it kind of tells you exactly where this element is and like what you can kind of do to fix it. Which is incredibly helpful to your developers, because as they're going in and doing it, it's like they're really just going here and making these fixes. And a lot of them are template fixes. To be honest with you, it's like a lot of them are template fixes. You fix it once and it fixes it on all your pages. That's the majority of it. Let's see what else is coming up here. Contrast. Contrast is something that we can talk about in a second. Text sizes. It doesn't like really small text, and it doesn't like when you do like display none and stuff. That's a CSS thing. The majority of you don't even have to worry about that. I'm sure that if you download this extension and you run it on your own sites, if I was successful at all in this webinar today, when you start clicking into these, this text right here, where it's telling you what's wrong with it, should correspond to something that we did in the webinar. And you'd be like, oh yeah, that's the alt text, or oh, that's the headings, or oh, this is an iframe and I need to title it. Obviously, I probably won't know the answer to that now, but if I did my job today, as you're looking at these audits, you should be able to associate what it's asking you to something that we went over. Okay, there is a plugin that does most of this stuff. Doesn't do all of it, but if you want to do the plugin route, here's what the plugin looks like. In the pre, there was a list of the 9 best plugins for accessibility. Most of them work typically the same. When you activate it in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, you have a little box here, or a little icon, which is universal sign for accessibility. If you click on it, it will begin to, on the fly, have accessibility options available for users that they can change at their liking. If I click contrast, it's changing the color scheme of the site so that your regular everyday users see the site as it's meant to be. But if you have a user that requires accessibility, that they're able to change those things using a plugin. No development code needed. Highlight links. Like, again, it'll highlight all of the links on your page. It'll make the text bigger. It'll make the text wider. It'll pause animations. It'll basically do some very basic thing out of the box plugin that will make your site more ADA accessible. I'm going to do one more minute here, and then I'm going to just open up it for the last 15 minutes for questions. But I think for the majority of you that are on this webinar, the easiest thing that you can do is just download one of these plugins and have it active on your site. It's a maybe something that'll take you a half hour to set up. You have this on your site. I think that I'm just trying to think about the correct way to say this, is that, like, I think that there are certain individuals out there that are looking to make it very difficult for certain companies if their sites are not ADA compliant. I think that if you take reasonable steps in order to make your site ADA compliant, that these people will just overlook your site and move on to one that's completely not ADA at all. I think that the easiest way to just have the accessibility option and really not have to be neurotic about the things that are on your site and if they are ADA compliant or not, but still provide accessibility, is to download one of these plugins. That is the overarching umbrella advice of the webinar. Does anybody have any questions?
Now's the time, folks. Go ahead and unmute if you'd like. You can also feel free to turn on your camera and say hello or not. It's up to you. We want to make that clear for this. Okay. Well, I don't see any questions. If anybody's typing in the chat, that's fine. But we can end it there, or we'll make sure to share all the links and resources and stuff like that that Marty and Krystle shared. Just want to thank both of you so much. Krystle's still here, I see. Thank you so much, Krystle. Thank you so much, Marty. This has been, honestly, every time I see this stuff, it's very helpful to me. And I appreciate, special shout out to Michelle for offering up her site to join me in the hot seat there. Is there anything else that you want to share with us before we drop, Marty or Krystle?
Well, I had a quick video just to show how screen readers function on websites, in case anyone was interested. I just would need to be able to be co-host again to share.
You are now a co-host. Go for it. Yeah, share away.
Okay. So this is a video on a screen reader that I mentioned earlier, and it's called JAWS. It's a 5-minute video, so I'm just gonna get started with sharing my screen.
Just don't forget to check that. Just don't forget to check that share sound box at the bottom of the share window.
Yes. All right, I'm about to start.
Just one more reiteration here, folks. We will be sharing the recording of this session with you afterwards. Here we go.
Okay, and just let me know when you're able to.
We can see it.
See it. Okay. Oops, sorry.
I don't think I've actually ever seen anybody screen share with their phone. This is great.
Are you all able to hear it?
Yes, you might have to turn it up just a little bit
work
though.
With several internet browsers, and one of the things that you'll discover is that it kind of shows different features, sometimes depending on the browser that you're using. If I wanted to go to Google Chrome, for example, I can hit the Windows key,
start button to move to items,
start typing Google,
menu, search box at G, Google Chrome, G.
And it's the very first thing that pops up, and I can hit enter at this point and go into Google Chrome and go to that web page. But I kind of like using JAWS with Internet Explorer, so I'm just going to escape out of that.
Leaving menus, folder view, list view, JAWS 18.0.
Hit the Windows key, start typing in Internet Explorer.
Internet Explorer,
and there it is. I hit enter, and it's going to bring up the home page.
Internet Explorer, Maryland State Library for the blind.
And I hit Control to shut JAWS up right there. And I'm going to go to a different web page. I'm going to go to the National Library Service for the Blind web page. I do this by doing Alt-D to get to the address bar.
Alt-D, address and search using Bing Edit, HTTPS.
And then I'm going to type in
block.gov/NLS. Can you see it still?
No, now it's back at your home. Let's see. And back. We're back.
It'll say how many frames, headings, and links that it has. It's easier to navigate web pages usually by looking for the headings, because this is where the major content is usually laid out. So if I hit the H key, it will show me what my headings are. I can also find headings by doing insert function 6, but I'm going to just hit the H key
NLS at the Library of Congress heading level 1.
to look at my
And
major
all there, read
headings.
left parent video right parent heading level 3. Enrollment and equipment heading level 3 link. Braille and audio reading materials heading level 3 link.
You also hear that these are also links as well, which means I can hit enter on it and go to that particular part of the website, and it's going to display that relevant information.
Resources heading level 3 link. About heading level 3 link.
So if I want to go back up, if I say, well, you know, let me check out that resource list, I can do Shift H
Resources heading level 3 link.
to get back up to the page, to that heading. Again, demonstrating the insert F6.
Heading list dialog.
Here are the headings, all of them.
Enrollment, at all, NLS, at all, enrollment, Braille and resource about code.
And I can also hit enter on those to show me headings. If there are any buttons on this particular page,
Wrapping to top. Change page contrast toggle button.
I can hit the letter B. It's going to show me my buttons.
Submit search button. Play button. Forward 10 seconds button. Rewind 10 seconds button. Replay button.
A lot of times, if I'm going to a web page that doesn't have very many headings, I know at that point I need to either arrow down and
Oh my goodness. So sorry, guys.
They're really trying to call you. If you need to answer it, Doug, go for it.
Or if I'm feeling particularly lazy, I can do the insert down arrow, and it's going to read me
Download audio. Link watch on YouTube. External list and heading
from
list
that
3
point
link.
onward.
Okay,
all
are you
the
able
links
to see it?
and all the text
Yes.
that's set up on this particular web page.
Heading level 3 link Braille and audio reading materials link locate a book, magazine, or musical score.
And then I can
Search
hit
the NLS
control.
cat how.
And JAWS magically shuts up.
That was fantastic. It's so nice. It's good to be able to see that from,
For
or
more
to be able to
information or
experience that. You know what the user actually experiences there. I appreciate that, Krystle. I hope that the voice that they use for that has been improved over the years. I don't. That seemed like a somewhat of an older video, and I hope you got a better voice than that for the app now.
Yes.
Well, thank you. Can you send me the link to that video, and I'll share I'll share that with the attendees who had to leave early as well, because I think that's actually incredibly useful after talking about it technically speaking and everything, to be able to see, hear, and experience what that is like from the end user's perspective. I think is very useful.
Sure. I'll do that
Thank
right
you.
now.
Okay. Well, again, thank you all so much for attending. That'll do it for today's session. I really appreciate everybody who showed up today. Like I said, we'll be sharing the recording as well as the transcript and all the materials and resources that were referenced during the session. Thank you again to Krystle and Marty for taking the time. And if it's okay, we'll share your contact information with the attendees as well in case they want to follow up. And you let me know if that's cool afterwards, and we'll make sure to get that out to folks. So thanks again, everybody. We'll see you soon, or we'll talk to you soon at our next session.
Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.